Hello and welcome everyone. I felt it was time that I did one of these videos. I don't do this a great deal, but yeah, I think this is a good time. Anyway, so I'm going to read to you something that I wrote in November last year. That's November 2021. And I think it's even more relevant in light of the last 24 hours or 36 hours events. More relevant now than it even was then. So I've titled this, "Okay, we've protested, where to from here?" There are many protest movements in New Zealand today. I've never seen the country so stirred up over different issues. This is good news for different reasons. One good reason is that the people have woken up. The apathy and complacency of the people has been stirred to a point where we are no longer going to tolerate our rights, our culture, and the dreams of our children to be forfeited by this current government. Whether you are a farmer facing increased and unreasonable demands on many different levels, or a teacher or healthcare professional, whether or not you are a committed anti-vaxxer or just against this particular mandatory vaccine, you are justifiably stirred up about the trampling of your rights to bodily autonomy as set out in the Nuremberg Convention. Maybe you are voluntarily triple vaxxed, yet you vehemently disagree with the mandates. You are stirred up because family, friends, colleagues and workmates are divided and angry, causing more stress and more breakdowns. You are standing up for your business, the hard work you've put in, only to see it all trampled before the jackbooted approach of this government of kindness, the single source of truth, who are the perpetrators of this anger through their draconian lockdowns. You are rightly standing up for your little ones, who are now being targeted for the vaccine. For whatever reason you are standing up, I salute you. For whatever reason you have joined forces with other like-minded people and taken to the streets with your banners, your chants and your loudhailers, I salute you for your civic-mindedness, for your willingness to stand up and be heard, for your willingness to be the subjects of derision and marginalisation, for your stand against the media narrative, and above all for the future of our great little country. The reality is that sooner or later all of these protests will need to culminate in something greater than a rally or a protest. Sooner or later, what began as a social movement saying enough is enough will and must find expression. And it must find expression through a political movement. On what basis do I say that? I say that on the basis of the response, or rather the lack of response, from a government that has blocked their ears. Now bear in mind, I wrote this in November 2021, and nothing has changed despite the increased tempo of the protest and the increasing coverage and spread of this movement that sees our freedoms being eroded. I say this on the basis of a government who takes your vote on the pretensions of a certain mandate by which we had agreed to be ruled. We were told, we will govern for all New Zealanders. And then they proceeded to divide us over race, over wealth, over health status, over age, over land use and ownership, and over whatever cultural fractures that they can find that will give them the excuse to exercise greater and greater control over the people. I say this on the basis that we do not have an effective opposition. I say this on the basis that a significant proportion of the population, yes, that's us, are not politically represented by a single existing party in Parliament. What would that political expression, that movement look like? Who will lead the charge? What policies will take precedence? Thinking about various issues. Here are some themes that I hope you'll agree are the common denominators to many of your concerns, which are posted under the title Crucial Issues. Number 1, a withdrawal from and defunding of the United Nations until such time, at least, as their agendas are moderated and acceptable to a sovereign and independent nation. Respecting borders, rejecting globalist ideology and accepting free market principles, including the rejection of socialism. Number 2, a return to the original intentions of the Treaty of Waitangi and all associated issues, Three Waters reform, He Puapua, no preferentialism in health reform, an end of Treaty of Waitangi tribunal settlements, rejection of critical race theory, anti-colonialism, and the focus on equity. A return to equal opportunity without imposing equal outcome, an end to preferentialism and a return to equality under the law. New Zealand law will become even more colourblind than it has been in the past. Yet individual cultural practices that exemplify all the cultures that make up our population will be encouraged and respected. We are to celebrate our various cultural heritages where they do not impinge on the privileges and rights of the general population. Number 3, COVID-19, the abandonment of any coercion or propaganda to entice the nation towards vaccinations. No vaccine passports or mandatory vaccinations. All ideas with regards to handling the ongoing health crisis to be the subject of an independent inquiry and consultation with the voter. No more regional or national lockdowns, but protective measures for the aged and the immunocompromised, with lockdowns in specific targeted sectors of the population on a voluntary basis. Electoral reform. Changes to the way we do politics, a more direct democracy, where the principle of government of the people, for the people, and by the people takes precedence, where representational politics is reduced and direct democracy is expanded where practicable. The institution of citizens-initiated binding referenda, exploration of ways to introduce checks and balances on the power of government, including a comprehensive New Zealand constitution set in one document with limited means to modify. The constitution will focus on the role of government in assuring the strength of the Bill of Rights Act, whereby the ability of individuals to decide their own destiny without interference from the state is of prime importance. A return to a proper debating chamber with mandatory submission stages, except under circumstances of extreme urgency, and in those cases only after majority or bipartisan approval. The removal of race-based seats at the national and local body level, measures to protect the electoral system from fraud and to give the voting public assurance of transparent processes not compromised by technology nor by coercion or interference through major corporate interests, including large donations sponsored by big business, or big governments for that matter. An exploration of the idea that after a defined threshold of party members, all parties have the same expense allowances. This will rule out the idea of money, the supply of money, predominating in the choice of a new government. Working towards limited government. Government chief roles will be law and order, police, the defence forces, health and education, the building and maintenance of major infrastructure that needs to be facilitated at the national level, such as national highways. Government support for our only refinery to be reviewed after 3 years. Decentralisation rather than the current trend of centralising areas such as health and local body issues. More of a hands-off approach with regard to our producers and manufacturers. A free and independent press. No more subsidies or payouts. A stronger broadcasting and advertising standards authority which will oversee and critique ideological bias and lack of objectivity and balance in the current state of mainstream media. An immediate inquiry into the state of the nation's economic condition. And a moratorium on any government spending outside of maintaining the status quo. A return to responsible budgeting and incentivising of saving taxpayers' money by minimising government spending. A commission of inquiry into the state of the nation's education facilities and educational practices, with particular emphasis on the removal of indoctrinaire programs, from environmental extremism to gender ideology to critical theory to relativism, postmodernism, nihilism, and deconstructionism at any level less than tertiary education. Where they are to be taught, they must be taught with opposing or alternative theories. Our tertiary institutions need to be in the business of training innovative and critical thinkers, not blinkered or ideologically compromised automatons. A sustainable immigration policy, preferencing people with skills and those with a similar worldview to the Western tradition, or evidence of benign cultures that show a history of willing assimilation and tolerance of other worldviews. A return to common sense gun laws. Reinforcement of free speech laws. No curbs on debate. Free speech means freedom to offend. Let the public decide if you're over the top and disassociate. The existing laws over defamation, slander, and incitement to violence are sufficient. Latest regulations affecting primary industries to be dropped. Significant natural areas, grazing rules, hoofprint concentration, unworkable water reform proposals to be axed. A consultation process on agricultural practices is to include all stakeholders. The carbon neutral accord shall be dropped. The government will not enter into programs designed to divide New Zealanders. There will be no more talk of redistribution, but rather of encouraging personal and individual responsibility. Social welfare spending to be revised so those in genuine need get food coupons or housing assistance rather than benefits. Family policy. It's an old adage, but its age is testament to its wisdom. The family is the building block of community, and strong communities build strong nations, and strong, just nations bring hope to the world. A measure of a nation's sense of justice is how we treat the most vulnerable. On many levels, this present government is destroying the fabric of a society that made this a great place to live by any measure. The state must recognise that one's biological parents are best fitted to raise families. That's proven by biology and history. The state will never show the level of care that families can provide if given every opportunity. The state must back off. It is at best a stopgap measure to take children into care and an unsatisfactory replacement for even the most dysfunctional families, supporting grandparents, uncles and aunts that with help will take responsibility. which is better than institutionalizing children. State intervention should be rare, but under current conditions, this will take generational change. Programs proven to inspire and motivate people towards a productive contribution should take precedence over social welfare policy. Foreign policy and trade. New Zealand would do well to foster and prioritise trade and reciprocal diplomatic agreements with nations with whom we share a common heritage, primarily the Commonwealth nations and other nations with a Western culture like the US, and nations which are democratic and have a track record for recognising human rights and that prosper their citizens. So I'll post this online for you to have a look at. It's a lot to take in. I spent some considerable time listening to your concerns and feeling strongly with my own sense of what's going on in this country. I urge you, you've all done an amazing job protesting, and I salute you for your sacrifice and your efforts and for your continued resistance to the temptation to meet violence with violence. I think Mahatma Gandhi was a great demonstration of peaceful resistance, and that must continue. Thanks for watching. Good night.